Is that our concern? In today's Bible reading about Jesus and the wine, the wedding at Cana, Jesus told his mom it wasn't their concern. Excuse me, that's not okay. It's the kind of thing that communicates disrespect. It communicates a sense of disdain. It's rude. Some folks look at the way Jesus addressed his mother at the wedding at Cana as rude too, when he says, "Woman, what concern is that?" And while I do identify Jesus telling his mother that it was not their concern was unnecessary, I don't think the way he addressed her was rude. Reading it now, it looks callous, it looks misogynistic. The context of the time makes it more as if he said, "Ma'am," or something else. Still not the way to address one's mother. How about mom? But not the super rude beginning to an otherwise rude statement by Jesus. Mary responded, though, in a much more respectful way, holding her tongue, I'd guess. Do whatever he tells you. Can you imagine the eye rolling maybe before that? I think maybe there was eye rolling, and I can imagine a "hold it right there, young man, what are you giving me" attitude for conversation that happened between Mary and Jesus while the jars with water were turning into wine. It's not in the Bible, but I can guess that maybe that happens. Is it okay to talk to people with disrespect? I know it happens every day. At every level, from friends to family to teachers to business associates to political adversaries. But is it okay? What does it accomplish? It's good that Jesus turned water into wine at a time where folks might have been prone to get more rude. Jesus, who was a guest, still practiced extravagant hospitality. And Jesus' first recorded miracle was to keep the party going, because Jesus does that. Here's a little bit of advice. Call it a proverb. The response to someone showing hospitality is graciousness. Also, advice like that isn't meant to be used as something that individuals can. It's meant to be something that individuals can and should do, but it isn't meant to let somebody say, well, they didn't respond with graciousness, and so I'm going to be rude and disrespectful back to them. We can only control the way we act, not the way someone else does. So I'll get off my soapbox there. Jesus practiced extravagant hospitality, responding to a need. He did that a lot. It's a good example to follow, responding to a need. Sometimes the response to a need is something controversial. There isn't agreement on the need. There isn't agreement on the solution. There is fear-mongering, hatred, and any number of attempts to marginalize any movement to move forward to a better day. And today we celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was in a Birmingham jail after leading nonviolent demonstrations for civil rights, nonviolent demonstrations against racism, nonviolent demonstrations against injustice. He had been chastised for the demonstrations and for his part in them. He had been called an outside agitator and had received a "you don't belong here, this is none of your concern" letter from the clergy. Listen to these words from Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. "I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an escapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow provincial outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives in the United States can never be considered an outsider. The contemporary church is so often weak. It's an ineffectual voice with an uncertain sound. It is so often the arch supporter of the status quo. Far from being disturbed by the presence of the church, the power structure of the average community is consoled by the church's often vocal sanction of things as they are." We are still caught in this inescapable network of mutuality. And the contemporary church, now church, not the 1966, 67, 68 church, but the church of 2025 is still often the arch supporter of the status quo. Too often we act as if it's not our concern. But it is our concern. We need to be the arch supporter of the marginalized and the outcast with prayer and direct action. As humanity, we have to realize this and be a part of making things better together. We can't just sit and pray. We are people of prayer and action. So what is our concern? LGBTQIA plus equality is our concern. Advocating for and living out a just peace is our concern. Liberation of the oppressed is our concern. Being welcoming, inclusive, supportive, and engaged for mental health is our concern. Being a vibrant, inclusive community, living out love, respect, and dignity for everyone is our concern. And I know it's a lot. And that's not all. Being the church is our concern. I know we can't do everything, but we can do something collectively, individually, with other groups, through lots of means, presence, or whatever form it takes. Finances, letters, prayers, conversations. Does it sometimes seem that conversations about solutions for the common good is almost impossible to have? Yes. Does that mean that people of good conscience, good faith, good intentions can't unclench their fists and work together towards solutions? No, it doesn't mean that. Humanity has to stop finding ways to berate, belittle, harm, and kill each other. Dr. King had it right. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. And if we inject violence into our inescapable network, the violence doesn't wane, it grows. Violence cannot cast out violence. Hate cannot cast out hate. Toxic speech cannot cast out toxic speech. Kindness leads to kindness. Generosity leads to generosity. Forgiveness leads to forgiveness. Cooperation leads to cooperation. Love leads to love. Hospitality leads to hospitality. Jesus responded to a need. Some today see that move as controversial or try to explain it away in a way that makes it less controversial or not controversial at all. At the party, Jesus continued with his first recorded miracle. It was real wine. It was the kind of wine that would make a person drunk. And Jesus drank the wine too. I recognize that there are people in the world, maybe people here, who can't drink alcohol because it doesn't do good things. And we heard Surgeon General or reports from medical professionals that said that it could be problematic in even small doses over a lifetime. Jesus drank the wine. Jesus turned the water into wine. The guests were drunk, and they probably got drunker. It's not a reason to fight. It's a reason to be called to something better than the best that you might put out at the beginning of a wedding feast, better than what we use to impress others. This is the kind of better that changes the world. It's the kind of better that not only recognizes but celebrates that we are woven together in this inescapable network of mutuality. It's the kind of better that Jesus talks about when he says, I have come to bring life, abundant life. Dr. King reminded us of our unbreakable connection to one another. Jesus reminds us that that connection is to be celebrated with kindness, generosity, forgiveness, cooperation, love, and hospitality. It is our concern. And we can talk to one another. Expect the best of one another. Treat one another as if everyone mattered. Let our actions represents being a vibrant, inclusive Christian community, living out love, respect, and dignity for everyone. Let all that be a sign. Amen.